And yeah,
There
Danelle,
you
sorry I
go.
wasn't here to help intro you and all that, but I came down with a very nasty flu overnight, and I am
Oh,
sitting here in layers, but still shivering. And yeah,
oh, I hate to hear that. Love you. Big hugs.
yeah, yeah, you too.
We got
Thank
one
you for
that's
coming in.
recovering from surgery, so she's laying in a hospital bed. We got one that got sick overnight. Stephen, stay healthy, okay? Well, thank you so much, Danella, for being here, and I wish you the best of luck with your bidding. And we'll see you soon, and we'll come. We'll be able to attend your event. I will be there for sure. Sounds All right,
Okay.
bye, honey. All right. See, we've just been jam-packed with content, people giving you stuff, pouring into you. And so we also knew that you guys have had a lot of questions. I've been privately asked a lot of questions, a lot sometimes are in the chat, a lot I'm getting through emails. So one of the things, Siobhan, I know you were talking about when do you get the email? I send the VIP email every single day after the day is done because there are people that are upgrading through the day. And so I wait to the end of the day and you will get all the links. And I sent that through my Kajabi. But if you don't get it, Siobhan, you have my information, you have my number. I can send it a different way. Just let me know if you don't get it. But most of you should already, if you are VIP and you've clocked in, you have all of those gifts. I wanted to let you know, I added a few more last night. I was stuck. There was a fire on this long bridge that we have here, so we couldn't get to town. We couldn't get to where we needed to go. So we went to a restaurant and ate while we waited for the traffic to clear. And I was like, my Philippines guy, my video editor, got back to me and said, yes, I'd be happy to do a master class for your VIPs to teach them what they need in a speaking reel. What are the psychological triggers that you need? What are the things you got to think about? What are your assets you need to get together for someone to do that? And then he's also going to be adding on to our amazing platform as well. The three of us in our event, Viable, that we will be doing in September. We'll be talking about a little bit more of that now, and we'll be talking more about that at the end of the day. But he is going to be able to, when you join our mastermind that we're creating, because why wouldn't we have a mastermind? We got the mastermind guy, right? And we want to have a mastermind where people who are going after corporate are actually getting gigs, getting partnerships, going in with other people, learning from each other, learning from the three of us. It really is. And we bring in experts like Danelle, we'll bring in other experts that maybe you didn't get to see here. I have an expert that she said she could do something later this year, which she talks about how using AI to get gigs. I mean, I just flashed the screen and showed you a little bit, but that was very generic. But she has some specific things that really help. So there's a lot that's going to be going into the mastermind, but he is going to give that when the people join the mastermind, he will do their speaker reel for free. It's just a part of being with us. So you guys helped me create my own bonus and have fun with that. The second thing is I put in is the Bible. We did a three hour live class. We did 2 Saturdays ago with myself, and I. Yeah, no, with me, Stephen and Jay, and Tim Taylor, who you'll be hearing from later. And it is a course that you can listen to all of those things. Tim will be here soon talking about the platform and how do you license your courses. So you'll get that for free. How many of you in here would want to do a TEDx talk? Anyone? Yeah, it's on your list. All right. Well, I threw in my course. It is the 5-day challenge, how to land your TED Talk. So if you want to know how to apply, where to apply, what you need to apply, what they're looking for, because I am a screening. I've been on the 20 screening committees for TEDx. Not only just being a coach, I have actually sat on the speaking committee and the selection committee. So I do know what they want. I have a 99% success rate on landing a TEDx talk. So if you think that that's something you want to do, it's also in the VIP. So these are the things we're building for you guys. This is when we're hearing from you what you're needing, we're providing it. Right. And so that's why we decided this session we were going to do where we're answering a lot of your questions. And so I had a lot of the questions come through, and I'm just going to read because some of them were specific. And then some people I'll just choose who gets to answer it. But there was one for me. It was after coaching hundreds of speakers, Erin, what's the biggest misconception people have about selling corporate? And I would say number one, I need corporate experience. I need to understand their culture, their language, all the subtle nuances. And the myths that you believe about corporate, right? I haven't done it yet. I don't have experience. I don't have corporate experience. I don't have any testimonials yet. All of those things. I didn't either, guys. I started the way you start. I started just reaching out and getting these opportunities that then I kept seeing going into bigger and bigger things. But I was also the one that was very humble and like, how do you want me to send this to you? Do you have any examples? Because I didn't know. And so we have created assets like that we include in our mastermind that really help you have those scripts, templates. And I know Peggy O'Neill's in here. She's been in our program, so she understands. She's like this. If you want to privately message her and ask what she's gotten out of working with us, she's also on our testimonial page for what she's learned from being with us. But we really do give you step by step everything you need in order to make that work. And that's what we want to be delivering in that 3-day event and then in our mastermind as we go forward. But those myths, and I know I'm not trying to call you out, but they don't pick up their phone, Dina, right? That is a myth, and that's going to keep you stuck because there are ways around it. Now, I also teach secret ways of how to get people's exact emails using AI, using systems. There are structures and out there. If you go to LinkedIn, you're like, well, I can't get their email. How would I ever find it? I have secrets like that. I have ways for you to find those things. I mean, I think I was the one, didn't I introduce that to you, Stephen, when we first started?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yep.
Because it's like, how do I get these people's emails if they're not in LinkedIn? And how many of you think that has to be in LinkedIn? And how many think that they're not going to respond in LinkedIn? They might not, but guess what? An email is going to get further for you, right? And so you want to be able to really understand these myths that you have, these things that I even built up in my own head, thinking I wasn't good enough, I hadn't been done enough, I didn't have corporate testimonials that I could use, but I started. Right. And it just takes one. And then you start using that one to leverage the next one. And you just keep, as we said in the very beginning, collecting those logos so people can see your one sheet and go, wow, if she's been hired by these companies, Microsoft, Boeing, Expedia, Google, wow, these are the kind of companies we want. Right. Now, I'll tell you, when I made that call on the first day on Tuesday, to the Idaho Forest Group, she's like, you do this in such big organizations. We're just a smaller organization. But I looked at it. They make $500 million a year. That's not a small organization, okay? Across like 5 states. In her mind, she's a small fish, right? And she's like, how are you going to do that for our culture? And I said, but I also grew up right here in this town, and it's a logging town. I know exactly the kind of communication issues that are happening, the leadership issues that are happening. And I said, and listen, here's 3 people that work for you. Ask them what they think of me. That some of them have known me 30 years. So it's beautiful that she looks at that and goes, oh my gosh, she's way out of our league. And remember, I pitched them 10 grand and it came down to 7,500, but then they're going to buy workbooks, right? And the courses. So it's moved up back to my $10,000 rate. But these are the things, these are these myths in your head that can keep you stuck. So what I want you to do is just take everything you knew of what you thought about corporate and let it go. And be just listening to everything you've learned over those last 3 days. And when we do our September event, you're going to learn more that really help you to install newer beliefs. They always pick up the phone when I call. They always hire me because I'm ready and I look professional. I am licensable. I am defensible against, them taking it up the ladder. So those are the big things that I would say. But I really wanted to jump in there, and especially when we talk about NLP earlier, those are about your limiting beliefs. I do my deeper work on limiting beliefs and in leadership inside of corporations, and it is essential to let go of those beliefs and install new beliefs. All right. So, Stephen, what's the difference between someone who gets a single corporate speaking engagement and somebody who builds a 6-figure corporate business?
Absolutely. So number one is having that bigger offer, that bigger solution. In other words, rather than just selling single one-off speeches, they have some sort of enterprise solution. So it could be, and you can build $1 million business doing this, it could be that they just do a series of workshops. rather than just selling a single keynote speech. But the bigger option is those who have, whether it's the champions model or they have other packaged offers with coaching and so on, is to really build the business with a greater solution. The other thing is to look at ways to position your services as being ongoing over the year rather than just the one-off speech or the one-off experience. However, there's also the whole notion of being referable and being so great at what you do that you end up having a single client hire you multiple times to do the same talk, but do it in different countries or in different offices and so on. But I really think it's about having the bigger solution, the bigger offer.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. And that's one thing we teach people how to build out. Build out. I mean, if you build out the trainer model, like you said, what are the steps below that just
Yep.
feel like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah,
That's the important piece. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Jay, I have one for you. Why do so many experts stay stuck selling one-to-one client at a time when they have enough expertise to build something bigger like a mastermind?
Yeah, I think it boils down to one word, is fear. Um, I had a long journey climbing out of the basement and building my confidence back up to where it was when I, was building multiple seven-figure companies, um, and so there's such a big issue around mindset and people just um, going out of their comfort zone. So the other scary thing is when you start to, talk to or introduce someone to a 50 or $100,000 engagement instead of a 10 or $15,000 engagement, that fear triggers. But there's also packaging of the offer, and that's where a lot of people get stuck, is they don't know how to package an offer that might be the 50, 100, $150,000 program, using several of the models that we've heard about these last couple of days. So I think it's a combination of the fear holds us back. We're just, this first time we do it, it's scary as shit to go out there and offer something way beyond what we've offered before. And then just there's definitely an art and science to packaging offers to make them irresistible to the company that you're working with.
I love that. Yeah, I think you're right. Again, it goes back to these beliefs, these fears that we have that is it not enough? Can I do this? Is anybody going to buy from me? Like, we all have that, guys. When Danella was talking at the beginning, or in her talk about, when there's a line in the back of the room. Well, there's been many times where there's not a line in the back of the room for me. And I've seen it happen to a lot of other speakers too, right? And when I go to my corporate or to my clients, when I help my speaking clients do their own events, I can sit in the back, and what I do is if there is a line, I take a video. I'm like, look, you thought no one would buy. You thought there's just going to be crickets. And look what happened. Look what you created. And sometimes it's just you need to get that confidence built up. You just need to get one to say yes. And that just builds upon each one. So make sure you're checking those fears. I will say, especially in this corporate space, it's a lot easier. You don't have a lot of convincing to do. After you create the content, that makes you defensible. That makes you viable, right? And so if you have that, it's much easier for them to say yes. You're not convincing them that they're going to go have to ask their spouse. You're not going to have to go convince them, that you're the right person. These people have a problem. You have the solution, and that's all they see. So don't get stuck in that fear, because that's what's going to hold you back. That was great. I like that. Stephen, when you look at someone's business, what tells you immediately they're not ready for corporate? Ooh, I like this one.
Couple things. Number one is messaging. You can just tell that they're not languaging their website, their speaker's one sheet. They just don't speak to the ROI or the transformation or the solution that companies are looking for. So, and it's more than just speaking corporate. It's not about speaking corporate. It's about speaking to the outcome or the transformation, the results, the ROI, why should we hire you, and so on. And then also just not having themselves packaged in such a way that they come across as credible for corporate. It's one thing to build your entire business based on being a speaker, but the challenge there is you'll notice that a lot of speaker websites, it's all about the speaker. It's all about the person. It's not so much about the result, the transformation that you're bringing. So it's really about messaging and packaging so that corporate can hear you and make a decision.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like we said, if you when you build it right and correctly from the beginning, you have the structure and the system for it to continue. Because that's
Yep.
actually what the next question was for me was like, they said, somebody asked, what was the biggest mistake you see people making in their keynote or workshop that it immediately limits that corporations can buy for them? As you're in there, you're addressing the problem, but you're seeing other problems. And if you don't take that back, you're not getting, rehired, right? You go to a Q&R, a workshop, but if they're like, they still wake up going, we still have a leadership problem. Our managers aren't communicating. We're losing employees. Sales are down. We're struggling with the culture, right? When these things come up, even if it's not directly, if somebody had a problem with their culture and they started bringing that up in a workshop for me or asked me in a question from, the back of the room, I would really say like, okay, well, what specifically? And you can even use Stephen's model that he said, what are you going to start doing, stop doing, or what was the other thing? Start, stop.
Stop, start, continue.
Continue doing. That's working for you. You can ask that and get deeper, find out, because usually they'll say it's a culture problem, but it's usually communication, it's usually leadership, right? And those are the two things I solve. So it's really easy if they appear to me as a culture issue, but when I turn it around and make it a leadership and a communication issue, there's no that they just are all that they're thinking is you're the solution to the problem. You
Yeah.
you understand it based on what we're talking about, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. I have another one for you, Stephen. Walk us through what happens inside a corporation after someone says, we should hire this person.
The very first thing is, do you have the champion identified? In other words, not the champion's model, but the champion inside the organization that's going to support you to get you to the decision maker. The other aspect is getting to the decision maker themselves and making sure that you are speaking to the right person. One of the things I do that's a really great best practice is if I'm working with, let's say, an HR executive, but they're not the decision maker, what I do is I say, look, my role is for you to be the hero. I want you to be the hero in this process. So I'm here to serve you in any way I can. And one of the things that I've found with our most successful clients, is that if you can simply get me 10 minutes with the decision maker, we can explore what it is that their key drivers are to be successful with the initiative. And so it's really thinking about, do you have the champion in the organization to support you? And then also, do you have the language to get to the decision maker?
Yeah. If you don't have the decision maker, you need to make sure that what do they need, right? Again, like we talked at the beginning, if you're just getting the person's like, oh my God, you're so awesome. I'm going to introduce you to my boss. I think you should come in and do a keynote here, or maybe you can do a workshop. We'll figure it out. And then it's like, but they're not the one with the purse strings. They don't have the wallet. Right. They don't have the checkbook, right?
Right.
But it's, my biggest thing was when I sold that $100,000 offer the very first time, I was sitting on the call with the gatekeeper pretty much. And we were waiting for the executive, the CEO, to come on the call. And I was like, well, what do you think his objections are going to be? What do you think, knowing everything you know now, and I've given you so much for you to be able to defend me, right? And sell me to your boss. What do you think his objections will be? And she goes, well, the last company that pitched us, it was like 175,000. And then there was all these like 200,000 upgrade here and here and here. And it started to become, like $1 million problem. It seemed like they just keep rolling into more and more things. And I said, well, what's really great? My program is less than that. It's only $100,000. So what do you think he's going to think of that? And she's like, well, I think he's going to think that's even better of a deal. And you're throwing in those things, these extra things that we said we wanted, but we didn't want to pay that for. Mm-hmm. Why not just take that right away from that other speaker? That other expert, right? But the first time I was asking the gatekeeper, what is it you need from me first? Then how can I make you look like the rock star, the superstar? And I love, Stephen, you always talk about gatekeepers. And I know we've been kind of talking in here a little bit throughout, like they don't answer their phone, or what if I get the wrong person or whatever. But I'd really like for you to go through and really talk about how you, when you were, 19, called and got to talk to Sam Walton. Talk to us about how you engaged that and made that happen.
Sure. So I had seen a video from Tom Peters in my organizational communication college class on the Tom Peters In Search of Excellence video, and it had all these best practices from different companies. So I picked up the phone, and back then I just called 1-800-555-1212, which in the old days was the information line to get to companies. And I asked for Walmart. I got connected to Walmart in Bentonville, Arkansas. And then I got to the gatekeeper, and I simply said, "Hi, my name's Stephen Rowell. I'm just curious if Sam Walton would have 5 minutes to tell me the secret to his success." And she was very patronizing and said, "Oh, that's so sweet." And I was like, "Thank you." And she put me on what seemed like a forever hold. And then Sam got on the phone, and I couldn't believe it. But I said, "Sam, I was just curious if you have 5 minutes to tell me the secret to your success and how you've built Walmart." He speaks to me for almost 2 hours and was introduced or interrupted 2 or 3 times. And he said, "Oh, so-and-so can handle that meeting. I don't need to be there," and so on. And so I was blown away by how that question had triggered this opportunity of just listening and speaking. So I hung up the phone after that incredible experience, and I called FedEx and asked for Fred Smith, the founder of FedEx. And I said to the gatekeeper, "I'm Stephen Rowell. I was just curious if Fred would have 5 minutes to tell me the secret to his success." And she said, "Well, he's very busy, but let me check." And so he gets on the call and talks to me, and he talks to me for over an hour. And I was like, "Holy cow, what is going on? What's the secret here?" Well, what I figured out was by simply asking what did they think the secret of their success was, it opened up this opportunity for them to be vulnerable and just to share. And both of the men started with a story about something they learned when they were younger. And so what I then found was at the end of the Fred Smith conversation, I simply asked, "Is there anyone else that you think would be willing to talk to me like you have?" And he said, "Sure, talk to my old Yale fraternity brother who owns the Texas Rangers." And I said, "George W. Bush?" And he's like, "Yeah." So what happened was I get on the call with George W. Bush, who at that time was just a Texas rancher and, the son of a president, a U.S. president. But basically, he gets on the call and says, "Well, any friend of Fred's is a friend of mine." So I realized the halo effect of being referred. So what I would share with you is simply coming from a place of genuine curiosity, genuine interest, rather than seeing it as, "Oh my gosh, this is a huge hurdle that I have to overcome." Simply coming from a place of curiosity, genuine curiosity, will position you far better with a gatekeeper than thinking that you have to get over some hurdle or have the exact answer or the exact response and so on.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that when you tease them too, it's like, "Well, I know you actually run the show around here," right? Like
Right,
we
right.
know that he might seem busy and he has a busy schedule, but we know that you run the show around here.
Oh, that's a
People
great,
just
yeah, that's
they
a great
love that.
reminder.
They just go, "Oh yeah, that's me. Somebody saw me."
Yeah. So that's a great, you just reminded me, that's a great one is exactly, that's what I would say is, "Well, you and I both know that you're the one that really runs the company." And then the gatekeeper always says, "Oh, thank you so much." And they blush and yeah, it's a really great technique. Yep.
Yeah, because as a gatekeeper, they're usually overseen. They feel like
Yep.
we're seeing them as that, and we're
Yep.
seeing them as an obstacle. And if you actually enroll them in being your advocate, your
Yep.
champion to help you, you're gonna win every time. They're gonna
Yep.
do things that I normally don't do this, but I like you. That
Right.
kind of thing,
Exactly.
right?
Yep. Exactly. That's exactly right. Yep.
I did see a
I've
question.
even
Okay,
gone as far as role playing with the champion. Like if they
good
just
idea.
cannot get me in front of the decision maker, Aaron asked that question that you asked. Like, well, okay, well, how do you think she's going to respond? What kind of objections is she going to throw out? Well, why don't we kind of role play? What if she says this? What are you going to say? And you actually coach the champion through how to answer the objections that they anticipate from their boss.
Yep.
Love that. Dr. Ruby, what is the approximate upfront cost to build a believable presentation to support the corporate decision makers' belief in you when you have a corporate champion? What's the approximate upfront cost? I mean,
The upfront cost is number one, courage to do it. Number two, the upfront cost is time. You're investing your time in putting together your message. And it's really about a little bit of courage, a little bit of time, and investing in your message. That's really the upfront cost.
things like this, right? This is an upfront cost that's getting you the information to help you be better.
Yep.
Our, upcoming event, that's another little upfront cost, but really truly it's, in our Viable Live event, we're really going to be helping you build some of these things. It's going to be deeper than this. This is a lot of like talking heads. We're talking at you. That's why we're throwing in some engagement and some questions that you guys had, because we really want you to have everything you need to make that decision. But in there, those are the things that are going to help you. And those aren't even that big of a deal, right? A couple $100 here, a couple $100 there, kind of thing. And you're doing it right now. You're investing in yourself. You're investing in that. I know I have something that corporations want. And now it's taking that time to do it and build it out and have the structures and systems. And we have all the structures and systems for you. Okay. So that was really great. Jay, where do you see the easiest recurring revenue opportunities that most people completely miss?
Well, that's too easy. Of course, masterminds, right? Like any kind of program that lasts long term, right? Instead of just doing one-off workshops and that kind of thing. And in about an hour or so, we're going to have Mitch Axelrod speak, who is his expertise is licensing IP. And that's another great way to create recurring revenue, because even in like the train the trainer model, even if you go in one time as the train the trainer, as a project fee, then you license your content for them to continue using it within the corporation, and that creates that long-term recurring revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead,
think some
Steve.
of the things we also talked about was like the workbooks that you can then sell in, like these little things that you're not really thinking, oh, it'll just be a part of my workshop and stuff. We sell those separately, right? Like little things like that too, that I think people kind of forget.
Yep. The other example is, just using workshops as an example, is from the beginning saying that the way we work with clients, based on our client success rate, the way we work with clients is we offer workshops quarterly for 1 year or for a year and a half. And they go, well, why is that? You say, because we know that once and done training doesn't work and that doesn't create lasting change. But what we do know is that with the right design, if we do quarterly workshops, your management team is far more likely to be successful. So that's a way to stretch exactly what Jay's saying, stretching the workshop approach into it's a year-long solution, and this is what we do. And then they said, well, we can't do an entire year-long commitment. What could we do? You say, great, let's do a set of workshops in the beginning, and then 90 days later, let's do a second set, and let's at least start there so that you've got some continuity. But the real issue is what Jay said, which is long-term. Think long-term. What is it that's going to be the longer-term investment that's going to have the greater return on investment and therefore have the real transformation?
And a messaging framework that works really well with that is the difference between improvement and transformation. Like, yeah, I can come in and deliver these workshops and you're going to see improvement in X, Y, and Z areas, whatever your outcomes are. But if you want to see true transformation, if you want these teams to really change, if you want, that's where we need to look at something and at least discuss something that includes implementation over the long term.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
most of these people have all had experiences where they bring in high priced consultants. There's like everybody gets motivated, there's a whiz bang, and then 2 months later, they're right back where they started.
Exactly.
Yeah. Somebody did ask a question, when do we get the recordings? Because it's up in the cloud, I have to wait at the end of the day. It's doing its thing. My son right now is upstairs. He's 18. He works for me. He is actually cutting up the videos and putting them back into the Event Raptor. So you'll go on the dashboards there and click on each speaker. If you have recordings of your VIP, you can click through and watch all of them. They'll be stayed there on your VIP dashboard. But it really is, I'm working on it. We're trying to get it done, and it is a longer process than you think because we're recording all day.
Yep,
So I
exactly.
didn't want to forget to answer that question, because I mean that's one of the biggest things that everyone's here like, hey, when do I get these? And I'm like, I promise you will get them all. It's coming. It's just a longer process.
Yep.
I had another, let's see, where did that go?
One question was, what does transformation look like with your framework? And I think they're talking to Jay.
Okay.
What does transformation look like?
So a simple example of this is, if I was like a health coach, I might say, take my 6-week course and you can lose up to 15 pounds. But if you work with me over the next year, I'm going to help you stop being the fat guy forever.
Mhm.
See the difference?
Yep.
50 pounds is improvement. Stop being the fat guy is transformation. And I talk a lot about this in I don't think I did yesterday in my talk, but that people want transformation, not improvement. And a lot of us are selling improvement and wondering why people aren't buying or why we're not getting client results is because we don't have time to work with somebody to get the true transformation. And especially in corporations, like, we just talked about, like, you can come in and create this whiz bang effect inside a corporation, but if it only lasts for a month or two, then how much value did that corporation get out of it? And
Right.
so just to plant those seeds early on about the long-term relationship, and yeah, I can come in and very quickly produce X, Y, and Z. But if you want to talk to me about real transformation, if you want to totally change these teams, if you want to make a double-digit increase in X, Y, or Z, we should really at least discuss a longer-term engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where, having your stuff together, because I know that someone was, it's like, I want you guys to think about this. All right. If a corporation loved everything you shared in a keynote tomorrow and then came up to you and said, we want more, what do you sell them next? Do you know? Would you have them go? Would you have to go home and create something? That's the question. The difference between somebody who gets hired once and somebody gets hired to build a 6-figure corporate business. It's really different. You have it all ready to go. And if you don't right now, and even though you've sat through a lot of things and thought, okay, here's some things I want to build out, it's those are the things you need to have so that you can keep, going over that. And what I'll say is the last decade, I've coached hundreds of speakers and watched incredibly talented people get into corporate meetings, got hired. Some did, some didn't. But what surprised me most wasn't who got the keynote, it's who built the actual business afterwards, right? Most speakers don't have an expertise problem. They have a packaging problem, right? We've been talking about that. They're trying to sell the speech, they're trying to sell a workshop, but corporations are buying the solution. Right? Not, hey, I hope we can find an inspirational keynote today, like Danella said, right? They wake up saying our managers need help. Our leaders need to be developed, those kinds of things. So you have to use their language. What is the problems? And we've talked about this a little bit throughout is do your research on your industry. Adina, is just because I know your industry, because you said it so many times, accountants, do your industry on what they're really struggling with. What are the words that come out of their mouth as what the problems are? Not what you think the problem is, what comes out of their mouth. What keeps them up at night at 2 a.m.? What's going on in their head, right? And when I think of that, when I think about speakers, here's what I know. Every speaker worries that they're not going to make as big of an impact as they can make. How many people feel like, man, I got to get out there in more places because I have something that transforms lives and I'm feeling like I'm not getting enough impact out there? I know that because I feel the same way, right? I have that same mindset, that same thought process in my head. I need to be out in front of bigger audiences. I need more because I want the transformation to go out to the masses. But what I also know is you're not looking at your packaging to make sure that you can sustain that. And that's what I talked about in the beginning. I realized I had built a business on keynotes, workshops, all these things that were my delivery, me time, right? And I don't have as much me time, And so what are you building that lives without you? And that's where you become licensable and all of your IP and how do you deliver that to them? And all of those things are so more important because then you can serve bigger. If I do a keynote or do a workshop for the leadership team, right? But then they buy a course for every single employee, 10,000 employees or something. Wow, do you think I have a bigger impact? I didn't get in front of 10,000 people, but I did, right? And I feel like that's a mind shift that people need to have, that my content could live without me. I remember early on in my career, Brendan Burchard was talking about from stage. Like his friend passed away and he built his whole business on his expertise, consulting, speaking, workshops, live events. And when he died, his family went broke because he had no legacy, nothing to live on behind him forever, nothing to keep bringing in the revenue. Right? And I was like, oh, I don't want that to happen. But I didn't understand it at the time. But now, more than ever, I do. I want my thing to my IP, my information to be a legacy that every year those Microsoft checks come back through. Every year when somebody, buys my license of my courses and it's renewing for 3 to 5 years, I know that that's going to keep coming for my family. Right now, especially with being, temporarily disabled, it's how is it going to live without me? How are they going to survive if I can't get on a stage, if I can't present my workshop, if I can't do those things, right? And so it's really figuring out what you have and packaging it so that it lives without you. And I think that is, just spending the time to really do that. And that's what we're going to be doing. Our 3-day event is really helping you craft that. But that's how you make a bigger impact, right? And I think for you guys to think about, we all think, oh, well, anybody can do what I do, and it's not that special. And, there's other people that do it. There's a billion other speaking coaches. I just had like 3 or 4 of them on this week for us. It's not a competition to me because I do things differently, right? And yes, can everybody do that? But I know my way is backed. It's been proven. I have all of these things that I've done. And when you feel that way, then it's not a sales pitch when you get on a phone call with somebody. Yeah, you could line us up against the wall and they go, which one do you want? And I'm going to be like, you want me? And here's why. And the rest will be like, oh, wait, maybe I should come up with something to say, right? Own what you do. What you have is genius and people are needing it and they're going to create impact if you package it so that it lives beyond you. I just feel like this legacy piece of me, like there's not enough time in the world. And it goes back to my TEDx talk. Live like you were dying tomorrow, because it really is the way I see the world. My dad died when I was 10, just like you, Jay. I didn't know that about you until yesterday. I don't think I've ever heard that. And then my mom got malignant melanoma when I was 15. And it really was these glasses that I see is like, take action, go do it. And if you don't know how, fumble through it. It's okay. If you fumble through it over here at GE, then you go to there and you screw it up and you bumble it, you learn through it. Then you go to their competitor, pitch them, because now you know what you needed to know over here, but you can translate that. So see it faster. I want you to have this content packaged in so that you really can make a bigger impact. And that's with licensing your IP, your courses, your packaging, you're making that huge offer, right? Start at the top, champions offer, all the way down to, let me just do an assessment and find out what your people need. That's what you want to package. So I love that. I see people texting in here and I haven't looked at the.
Sunita has a question. I get discouraged when I see that there are famous authors and huge corporate training programs that provide leadership and communication training to corporate, which is what I want to do. How do I get in doing similar things, or do I pivot?
Well, you're here, you're learning from me who's already doing it. So you're learning from somebody who's done it, right? That's number one, is finding the person that has done it, has the results, hey, can I copy yours? Can I use some of your templates, your scripts, and how you get in? How are you doing that? How are you pitching it? How are you pivoting? How are you looking like? So let's say me and Lisa Nichols side by side. She doesn't do a lot of corporate. She'll do like industry events, but I haven't really seen her do any training inside of corporate. And I know her booking agent, she's one of my dear friends from Seattle. So if we had both of us sitting side by side and she doesn't have a whole package, you might think she's famous. She's already been doing it, all these things. But if she's not packaged in the way that I am, and it looks like the solution, she's not going to get it. And she even charges more. They're like, but okay, sure. She does $25,000, $50,000 for a keynote, but Erin has a $50,000 solution long-term to the program. So there's so many people out there and I'm not intimidated by them. I do it my way and I do it well. And I don't need anybody I have my own lane. You are unique. You can't compete with unique. Because your own process is unique.
There's another question about, she says that she has worked in the nonprofit space for quite a while and is now pivoting to corporate and doesn't have a portfolio in the corporate space. So how does she, as she starts to network and reach out, how does she deal with that? My initial thought on that is nonprofits are organizations. They are companies. So you have experience with organizations and with companies. What you want to do is take a look at the transformation that you made with nonprofits and speak to that outcome that you had with nonprofits as your credibility for working with companies. Any other thoughts
And
on that? Go ahead, Jay.
I'd even take that a step further. I would look to see if I can find an angle as a differentiator that yes, my experience in nonprofit is going to be different. How I'm going to bring what I'm going to bring into your company and how I'm going to help your company is going to be different than the other people out there coming in that do similar stuff because of my nonprofit experience. And let me tell you why. So I would look for an angle to take that nonprofit experience and turn it into an advantage rather than thinking of it as, oh, I don't have the corporate experience.
Yep.
Yeah. And I would say, you would say, for me, I've been doing this a lot in the nonprofit space for a really long time. And here's maybe some of the results we've gotten. But what I noticed all of a sudden, here's your pivot. What I noticed is that companies like yours are also struggling with the same thing. So now I'm excited about bringing this to organizations like yours that can use this information that's worked over here in the nonprofit space into your space. You see how it didn't sound like I'm beginning? It just sounded like all of a sudden I noticed there is a trend in the industry that these organizations are also struggling with that, right? Position it that way. You don't have to be I only have experience in nonprofits. Not I don't have any experience over here. Shift it in the way you message it, which is, hey, I've noticed that there's a problem. I've solved it over here. I'm going to come in and solve it over here now. Such a different mind shift set and just how you position it and message it.
Are there other questions, Erin?
Yeah, I have Stephen, what trends do you see happening over the next 5 years that experts should prepare for now, especially with AI maybe?
The biggest thing I think is not succumbing to the, oh, woe is me, disaster, AI is here, it's going to replace me, et cetera, et cetera. I think those who embrace AI as a research tool, as a improvement tool, as a way to get better information more quickly so that they can better serve, and then focusing on the piece that AI can't do, which is the human approach to the business, to the work. You're going to be fine. I think those that do the pity party and say, oh my gosh, AI is going to crush me and all that, I think that's just totally a waste of time to go that route and to think about that. A great example is I'm working on my newest corporate book, and using AI, I've been doing developmental editing, getting feedback from AI from a developmental editing perspective. And I've accomplished more in the developmental editing space than what would have cost me $10,000 to hire a developmental editor to go through the entire process. So it's about embracing it as a tool and seeing it the way it really fits rather than being scared of it.
Yeah. And I think that AI, yes, we can have education at our fingertips, but it's not the full solution, right? Again, we talk about having a corporate package solution. And so, yes, you can ask as many questions in there, but are they going to build out a whole training system for themselves? They don't have time for that. So that's why they're looking for you to be able to fulfill that.
Yeah. Jay, you had a thought?
Yeah, so I've built and scaled some pretty successful companies using a philosophy that there's always something. There's always the newest trend thing. Years ago, people were talking about or direct mail's going to die, and then email's going to die, and events are going to die, and the economy this, and I've always lived by the philosophy: as long as I'm better than everyone else doing what I do, or at least in the top 5 or 10%, I can withstand any economy, any trend, anything that happens, because there are always going to be people out there looking for what you need and in a position to pay for it. So I just think this sort of I try not to get sucked into the whole trend thing and the economy's bad and that kind of stuff. Like, just stay above it, stay positive, know you can help people, and find the people that want your help.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Sorry, somebody came to their front door, of course. I'm trying to answer and limp to the front door. I was like, okay, here we go. Um, Jay, if someone started building today, what could their business realistically look like 2 years from now? Billing out some of the things we've been talking about this week.
How unafraid are you to go out and ask for what you deserve? I see examples all the time of people who have mediocre messaging, mediocre content, and deliver mediocre results, but they're successful because they get out and ask for the sale. They aren't afraid to get the rejection. They put themselves out there consistently and play a volume game. That's not the game I play, but there are people who do that with limited resources. And so for me, you can create anything you want. In a 2 year time frame, you should easily be able to create a multi six figure business, possibly seven. I know people who have scaled businesses to seven figures in that amount of time as thought leaders. I did it to multi six figures with my company now, my first 2 years. So there's a lot of opportunity out there, but you've got to think beyond the one-off consulting, working, one-to-one clients, one-off projects, and that's a lot of what our messaging has been about, and what our 3-day event is going to be about here in September.
Yeah. Sunita, I see. Okay, first of all, I'm going to tell you, communication is not a soft skill. I'm going to take that off the table. That's a myth. It is an essential skill, especially in corporation, especially with leaders. Like that's not nice to have. It's a necessity. And so if you position that as a necessity for them, it can solve a lot of problems, right? If, like I said earlier, if they say that they're having a cultural problem and it's really not, it's about leadership or communication, right? If they are saying that they're losing employees. Well, why are they losing employees? What is the drop off rate? When's it happening? What's going on? Maybe it's leaders, right? Maybe it's they can't stand their bosses, or the system that they do is, I cannot be micromanaged. That is one thing. You want to micromanage me? I will run away. Like, do not micromanage me, or I'm going to probably get in your face because I'm kind of confrontive like that. But like, if those are the problems, usually underneath that, it's communication. So stop thinking soft skills. It is going in and saying there's a problem. If your leaders are struggling with this, that's a communication problem. If your team, if your company is struggling with this, that's a communication problem. Almost everything goes back to communication. So there's not soft skills and it's like, oh, it's maybe a nice to have. No, this is a necessity and it's essential to them moving up. And I think employees feel it's essential because anytime they're put on the spot, either A, share their opinion in a boardroom, or if they have to present, they're panicked. So these are things that employees are struggling with and the company knows that they're struggling with because of the other issues. You just need to show the direct line, and there's no real measurable. What you can say is, you can ask them later, but here's what I say. You can show this. I said, you start with a pre-assessment and do your workshop and then do a post assessment, and you can literally see the changes. And how I used to do this with women is they'd get up and talk about who they are and their favorite childhood memory. Then they would sit down, they would learn all day from me. Then they would get up in the end of the day, learning everything that they did, do the same thing. And I recorded both versions and gave feedback of things that they did the first time and the second time. And I did assessments with them, like over the phone, and watched the videos with them and gave them that. But at the end, they could even see the difference. If they can go back and say, oh my gosh, that was the best thing we ever had, we want it more, whatever, that's a measurement enough that it doesn't have to be like, well, when I did this, 97% of their entire company did what? You don't have to have that, but you can say, if you see that in that day of training, they went from 0 to hero, that's all you need. Okay. So don't thinking you guys keep thinking there has to be evidence and all the stuff.
Right.
It's not that hard, right? It's more of just how you present it and how you capture it. You can capture it yourself, asking the big blank box at the bottom. What did you like most about it? What was your biggest aha? What was your biggest takeaway? What was your growth point? Whatever that is, they're going to give it to you. Then you take that back to the team. Here's what I found in my workshops, right?
Yep. So here's a great one from Julie. Julie is saying, please tell me that being older is not a disadvantage, but might be an advantage as the older, wiser woman. I think this is a great one. So this is a great mindset issue. It's a great paradigm issue. A couple thoughts, and then I'll share, you all can share as well. Number one, the vast majority of millionaires in the United States are made after the age of 55. So this idea that all the millionaires are made when you're in your 20s and 30s is a myth. More millionaires are made after the age of 55 than any other sector in the United States. So that's number one.
I'm not close yet.
Yeah, exactly. Just as a starting point. Number two, my experience, there are too many 70 and 80-year-old consultants that I know personally that are still doing consulting and still doing work to believe that age is a problem. Age is not an issue. In fact, being the sage, wiser, older person still has massive value, especially in corporate. I think where this gets muddied is this idea of, gosh, we've now got 4 generations, 5 generations working in the workplace. Do the generations understand each other, et cetera, et cetera? And I think that's where it gets a little muddy, is worrying about, I'm old and there's the new generations. But I genuinely believe personally that there are too many 75-year-old and 70-year-old consultants that I know of that are still working with Fortune 500 companies. The age is not an issue. It's just a paradigm.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And you're like, yeah, let me prove it to you. Guys, I want you to feel so confident. Like, let me prove it to you. Let me come in.
Yeah.
And let me do this workshop. And based off of this, you're going to see what else I can do for you. That's what I'm doing for this Idaho Forest Group thing that I closed on Tuesday, right? They're like, we don't know you very well. We want to make sure you're a good fit. I'm like, great. Let me do this workshop. It's a 2-hour workshop. Let me do that. And then what I'll do is I'll turn around and pitch an entire leadership program, right? And rolling this communication stuff into it out to all of the rest of their teams, all of that. So don't just stand on your haunches and be like, hey, I know what I'm doing. Give me the opportunity. That's what will get you what you need. It's just owning that. How do you get on podcasts? There's a lot of ways you can get on podcasts. There's a lot of, one of the girls gave away a whole bunch of health and wellness podcasts and different things yesterday. Was that Catherine? She gave a list of that. Just reach out. You need to have a one sheet, just like you would getting a speaking gig. So you need a one sheet, submit it to them, reach out to them, listen to their stuff, follow them, comment on things. And, they're always looking for guests. I used to have a radio show in Seattle and I struggled to get guests. Imagine that. This is before podcasting. So I really struggled to get guests. I have 2 podcasts, one about speaking and one about restaurants. I am inundated with trying to figure out where I can find these speakers that will come and speak about that. So it's really important for you to just get out there and do that. Podmatch, that's a great one. All your comments are helpful in light of your feedback. I'm looking to differentiate myself. The space rather populated, more becoming populated, and research look at areas of AI. Yeah, I think if you're thinking about, bringing AI into corporations, I will tell you, most of them don't know enough. And even in tech companies, right? And they might know, like, everybody pretty much knows ChatGPT. It's like, because it felt like the first one that came out. It became the word Google, just ChatGPT it, right? And I use GPT all the time as my language now, just like I say, Google it. But I will tell you, there's so much more inside of that you can differentiate on that. And what other tools are using?
Yeah. It's like the old Skype. Everybody said Skype, and now it's Zoom. And it's like, well, Skype was here first, but now they're gone, and the brand is Zoom. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
All right. Well, I hope this was helpful. I hope this kind of answered some of your questions. I'm glad you guys were asking them. I'm glad that, I was kind of gathering them behind scenes. I am working very hard behind scenes. You have no idea what I'm doing back here. That's why I haven't been on camera all day. I mean, when our speakers don't show up, then I'm trying to reach out to them. If they don't have their links, I'm trying to find them. I got somebody to give me their links, but not descriptions. So then I had to go create descriptions using chat to then put into their things.
There
I'm
you go.
making sure everything is going. So if I don't respond right away, know that I am working on it and I'm working on things. I mean, I haven't figured out, Joyce, what the currency rate was. I mean, you guys are throwing things at me and I'm doing that while doing all the don't
That's
look behind the curtain at the woman back there.
That's great. So I noticed Tim is here. Do you want to bring Tim on?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be happy to do the introduction.
Yeah, so I'm gonna tell you guys. Remember, I've been seeding all along. Like, you have this content. We're talking about champions model having videos. We're talking about how do you do that? How my Kajabi would not do that. I told you that the first session of this entire week was that the lady asked me to do it, and I couldn't get that many licenses through my system. Well, now you're gonna have the system. I brought on the systems guy that's got what you need, and he is amazing. Stephen can read his intro, but I just, every time Tim calls me, he's like, "Hey, can you show up and do a speech in 20 minutes?" I'm like, "Sure. What do you want me to talk on? How long do I got?" And that's the kind of thing we do, right? And like I think it was somebody yesterday said, when you have the trust, you're the go-to person. Oh, I think Richard K said that. He can just get calls and say, "Hey, can you come talk here?" Tim and I do that to each other all the time. So Tim is here to show you how you can license your IP in courses all around the world in different languages and making you more money with your IP.
That's awesome. So Tim